Hey everybody, I'm trying out kind of a combination today. I'm trying out a video live stream that can also take listener calls via a separate switchboard, and this is a beta test. But if you'd like to try to call in, there is a call-in number. You can call the listener line. It's only a local number, USA number, but if you're out of the country, you can always try to Skype in using that number. Sorry about that. If I need to do a toll free, if it works, but the listener line is now on the screen. So if you want to give that a shot. Um, but I figured we'd kick off this Monday just talking to each other. And I had something kind of on my mind, and I wanted to start with this kind of monologue. Let me see if I can pull up the chat very quickly. Um, I'm a morning guy. That's why I'm doing a stream in the morning. It was just last week that SpaceX had that amazing landing of the Falcon Heavy rocket. I mean, did you see? It's just a compelling piece of video. I've actually pulled it up here so that we can all sort of watch it together in just a second. But I want to set this up. Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, SpaceX. Okay. It is an organization, a private company founded 17 years ago by Elon Musk, which is revolutionizing much of how we do space travel and transportation for governments, for the private sector, for everybody. And SpaceX has this sort of on the horizon goal of planting a a human colony on Mars. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime. You got to figure it's a one-way ticket, right? But it's amazing to watch what they do. It was February of last year when they did the first test of the Falcon rocket. It was amazing. And they launched that Tesla Roadster, this vehicle, this car, into space. And they had Starman, this mannequin dressed in a spacesuit, an astronaut spacesuit. And it began its orbit out. It was a heliocentric orbit that crossed the orbit of Mars and sort of left us, actually left us in a literal rear view mirror in this Tesla automobile, hitting a distance of 158 million miles from the sun as of November of last year. And it's already sort of begun the return on the orbit. So it's coming back our direction, and then it's going to reach sort of the innermost portion of that orbit in September of this year, and then it rotates back out toward the edge of the solar system, and it just goes on and on for who knows how long. I mean, who knows how long it's going to be out there in orbit. Starman, and we love the photo, and the videos were all mounted on the vehicle, and you could see all of them. And so it was April the 11th, and we see this Falcon Heavy. It's the biggest rocket in use today. It's like 5 million pounds of thrust. And every booster rocket costs as much as a 747. I mean, they're just massive. And so in the past, whenever we've done space exploration, these booster rockets, they're diverted into the sea. Big complex parachute system causes them to drop into the ocean, but the salt water corrodes them. There might be damage to the actual structure. So SpaceX has this amazing way of returning the rockets in a vertical path. They extend these legs, and there's a kind of a retro, is it called a retro thruster, that causes it to slow, and they just land. It's like watching reverse takeoff. And there is nothing like watching the video and hearing the SpaceX team in the background as they celebrate, a successful launch. And it wasn't just the boosters, the center booster had a communication satellite. The first payload last year was just a dummy payload, but this was actually a real mission with a satellite was deployed, and then they had an ocean landing of the large center rocket. And it's just an amazing time to be alive. Now, I have a point about all this, but I want to just take a second here, if I can, and I'm going to direct over the to the screen. And let's just watch. Let's take 3 minutes and watch what happened on the 11th of April.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Vehicles disregard range.
Center core beginning deep throttle. Center core at deep throttle.
Plus 33 seconds into flight. Under the power of 5.1 million pounds of thrust, Falcon Heavy is headed to space. We're throttling down at T plus 40 seconds to prepare for maximum dynamic pressure.
Power and telemetry are nominal.
We're hearing reports. Power and telemetry are nominal.
Vehicle is supersonic.
You may have heard the call out on
Side
Net
booster
1.
stepping up.
Vehicle is supersonic. Side boosters are throttling back up on power as we're
Max
through the
Q.
period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Pico.
Booster separation confirmed.
Successful separation if you can hear me over the cheering. Side boosters now beginning a flip to begin returning back to Cape
Side
Canaveral.
boosters are in boost back burn.
Side boosters have begun the boost back burn. The center core has throttled back up to power. Everything looking good on the flight of Falcon Heavy. The next major event, main engine cutoff of the center core and separation ignition of the second stage.
Coming up in about 5 seconds here, the side boosters landing burn will begin as well.
Side booster landing burn has started. Side booster landing is deployed.
An amazing view. You can hear our crowd going crazy right now. Both side boosters has landed on our landing pads. Zone 1 and Zone 2. Break. You can hear our crowd going wild. 3 for 3.
Okay, and they didn't get the actual touchdown of the center rocket because they had apparently a video glitch of some kind. But then they were able to finally get that video feed up, and it's just an amazing thing to watch. And so, you see, the collective efforts and innovation and problem solving and calculations and risk and vision and it's all of these collective efforts of all of these people, which is, if we're to be if we're to be honest, is the culmination of all of the technology that came before and all of the risk and innovation that came before. You see us reaching out into a place where humankind never once imagined it might be able to go. Okay? And I was watching this, and it was weird, because as I saw the rockets go up into space, and I was thinking about Starman out there, and then I sort of flashed to Voyager. Now, Voyager left the solar system and was gone. It continues to head out into the dark reaches of space. I had this thought. I flashed to the book of Genesis. Let me just read from the book very quickly. I don't know if you can see this or not. Genesis chapter 11. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. And you've heard the phrase, they're just babbling. It's just babble. Humankind has spacecraft that have left the solar system. But if you believe the story in the book of Genesis, God freaked out and punished humanity for building a tower that was no higher than 300 feet. I think it was 90 meters tall. 91 meters tall is the estimate for the Tower of Babel. And even if they had not been stopped, just physics would have stopped them at a height that was not much higher than, several hundred feet. Let's say they got to 1,000 feet. It's still not even a fifth of a mile. God loses his shit, and he punishes humankind by saying, hey, I am now going to splinter you all, and you will all speak in differing languages, so you cannot communicate to each other. So, the designer can't talk to the architect, can't talk to the concrete people, can't talk to the roof, to the shingle people. I'm just using modern day language to prove a point, right? Your contractor can't communicate with the subcontractor, and then your supplier is not going to be able to communicate, and it's going to be pandemonium, and you won't be able to build your building, which is essentially the height of sort of a vertical football field. And that's it. And yet humankind is shooting spacecraft far beyond our, the reach of our atmosphere. God doesn't even appear to lift a finger. I just thought that was an interesting, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. I'm trying to get the chat up here. Hang on just a second. Try this. And then we'll see. I don't know if the switchboard will work or not, but we'll give it a shot. Chat. Gonna find the chat window. Window capture. Chat. And then I have to make an adjustment here. Thank you for your patience. Okay, let's try that. Everybody read that okay? Yeah, the story was a metaphor. By the way, you spelled metaphor wrong. The tower symbolizes people going away from traditional religion and worshiping other gods and spirits. By the way, how do you determine which of the stories in the Bible is literal and which is metaphor? Because this is what I hear so often. Well, the good parts or the sensible parts, those are literal. The outlandish parts are metaphor. And the crazy stuff or the immoral stuff, that's either the product of context, misinterpretation, or it was a different time. I got a guy in the chat named Charlie who's talking about Judgment Day, and I always enjoy those threats as well. Because it is a threat, and it's the best that many religions can do, especially fundamentalist ones. They say, just wait till you're dead. You'll see. You just wait till you die, then you'll know. Will you just wait till no one can verify? And then you'll see the truth. You realize how ridiculous it sounds. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try and see if I can get someone from the dial-in phone switchboard on the live stream. I do need you in the chat to tell me if you can hear them, okay? I've got area code 309 You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Are you there?
Yes, Seth.
All right, my friend. What's your
Can you
name?
hear me?
Yeah, I sure can.
Jacob Knott.
Jacob, talk to me. What's on your mind?
Not much. I do like your show. I've been following you since 2008,
Thank you.
and recently been in an argument with one of the pastors in my family about the Tower of Babel.
And how'd that go?
Okay for now. We're still at it on Facebook.
He hasn't. You haven't been deleted from the. You haven't been blocked or deleted. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, haven't been deleted or blocked yet. So
Well, can you tell me about the nature of the argument? I mean, what was everybody saying?
well, it was about the evolution of language. I saw on a post and I shared it, and my uncle, his name is Rick, he posted like, yeah, language came about because people built a stone tower to try to reach God, and he made them all separate, made them all go their own ways with their own language. And it's like, really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's a story in a book.
Apparently, I need to make one more switch on the switchboard so that people can hear you better, Jacob. But for those who are sort of,
Sorry.
it's not your fault. It's actually it's a setting on one of my recorders. It's a long story nobody cares about. But the short version is you have a pastor in the family, and you've been arguing about the Tower of Babel. They believe the pastor believes it was a literal story. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it was God punishing us for being too proud and wanting to reach the heavens, and so he just sort of knocked us down a few paces. Is that accurate? All right, hang on. Let me make a switch real fast. Don't leave me, Jacob. And thank you, everybody else, for your patience. We go to settings, and I'm going to make a switch. Audio. And line out. Okay, you still with me, Jacob?
Yes, I'm still with you.
All right, that should be much better. And those of you in the chat room, you tell me if it's the switchboard of Babel. God is causing confusion, Jacob, because we are very proud. We are very proud. What was your refutation to the idea that it was a true story? I mean, how did you approach this?
I pulled facts off the internet, saying this is where, where we evolved at in Africa, and how we split it up from, into different tribes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And how it kept going, and, how we evolved into our own, everybody started to speak their own language by themselves. And he just keeps going on, and how it was the act of God, because God was jealous of us. So he smited us. It's quite annoying trying to argue with some of the people in my family. They're all super religious. So.
Oh, I understand. I understand your frustration. I was talking to somebody in my family. This is a few years ago, and this is when I knew it was like futile. When they invoked the Creation Museum, they said, "Well, if you just go to the Creation Museum, you can see." And I just was like, "Oh!" I died inside.
They wanted me to go to the Noah Ark exhibit a while back, and I said no.
I mean, if
it's like, I watched that guy put it together, and it's falling apart. It's like, really?
Oh, look, I've got a video online that'll help. It'll help clear all that up. It's called "Atheists at the Ark Encounter." Matt Dillahunty and I got in with a bunch of other atheists, and we were walking around, and it's just mostly it's
I've seen it.
Monument to empty space. You saw the video. You saw most of it's just
and
it's just a boat with a lot of dead air,
Yeah, what I was really sad about, I feel sorry for the taxpayers over there who had to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's what really got to me. It's like all these people had to pay for this, and now the whole thing is falling apart, and it's like,
it's funny.
I saw Bill Nye go through it.
Ken Ham is all freaked out about blaming the atheist for all the troubles that they're having. And it's strange that he seems unaware that he is now saying that the atheists who are criticizing the Ark Encounter are more powerful than his God. Like we have greater ability to prevent ticket sales than God has to encourage ticket sales. He just said that we are more powerful than his deity.
That's kind of weird.
Hey, you know,
we
Jacob,
have more power than a deity. That would be nice.
you're a god, Jacob, and you know we all bow down and worship you, my friend. Anyway, thanks for sharing, and good luck with your pastor relative. I hope you know it's good. It's healthy for them to know there's somebody out there who doesn't buy the story. So you hang in there, okay?
Okay. I'll try. You too.
All right, take it easy, my friend. See you later. Okay, yeah, we sort of segued clumsily into it, but I think the switchboard is actually working. If you are interested in being a caller on the show, it's kind of nice being able to take calls and do video at the same time. How you guys liking it on YouTube and on Facebook? Let's see. I've got area code 801. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth, this is Amanda.
Amanda, what are you doing?
Not much. I'm actually just getting ready to run to the grocery store with my son. But I wanted to call real quick because I've had an incident recently in my neighborhood, and I wanted to know what you guys thought about it. So.
Okay, all right. The chat and I are standing by.
Awesome. So I live in Utah, right in the center of like the Salt Lake City area. It's a very Mormon area. And we live in a neighborhood where we've lived here for about a year. It's a neighborhood of a lot of young couples. We really like the area, but we're not super social. We don't go to community events or anything like that. So nobody knows us. But recently, I think one of our kids let slip that we're not believers. And ever since that happened, within the last 2 months, we've been getting police called on us for really random things. Like we had a car in our driveway that wasn't registered, and somebody called the police on us. So we moved it into our garage, and then someone called the police again because they could see the sticker from the street. So the police came and they said, well, we can't really do anything about it legally, but will you just flip the car around so that people stop calling us? And then they called on us for a noise disturbance once when we were at home playing video games with headphones on, weren't even making noise. And then just recently, the thing that bothered me the most was we have two pretty young kids, really cute kids. I consider them to be pretty happy and well-adjusted. I'm basically a stay-at-home mom. My husband works. And we take really good care of our kids. And DCFS showed up on our doorstep last week, actually, and said that somebody had lodged a complaint about our kids that they were being neglected. So we had to go through a whole investigation. They had to interview me. They had to pull my son into a room. He's 4. They had to pull him into a room by himself and interview him. He's kind of confused about it. They had to interview my husband. Then they went to my daughter's school, pulled her out of class, interviewed her at the office in front of all the administration and people at the school. And I'm just at the point where I'm like, it drives me crazy because no one in our neighborhood really even knows us. So nobody has a reason to not like us or be mad at us. And I've been racking my brain for what it could be. And I feel like a conspiracy theorist in a way because I think the only thing it could be is that they've figured out that we are non-believers. And I don't know, I feel like they're trying to drive us out of the neighborhood or something. I wondered, I don't know. Does that sound totally crazy that I'm thinking that, or what do you think?
Well, I don't, I can't speak to whether it's, obviously it's an unusual situation. If someone's sitting over there wringing their hands going, oh my God, they have an unregistered car, that seems more than a bit pathetic. And even the cops seem to know it's pathetic. They're like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But it does sound like I'll bet it's probably I don't know, but my instinct is it's probably a small group that has decided to harass you. Is the only word I can think of.
Yeah.
And I don't think that type of thing is. I don't really know how one would counter that beyond sort of surveilling your own property to make sure that no one's doing anything untoward in regard to you, your home, your land, your people. I find it interesting that people are so insecure about what they believe, their truth, that they have to push out anybody who holds a differing opinion. That's not a position of confidence. These people are betraying the fact that they're so insecure about what they believe that they have to surround themselves with affirmation all the time. They can't abide a disagreeing point of view. I think they have just revealed to you how much power you have as a dissenter. You are a contrarian. Christopher Hitchens would be proud of you, Amanda. I'm just saying.
Well, that would be great. I would love that if Christopher Hitchens was around to be proud. But yeah, it's just weird. And it didn't really bother me, the whole police showing up the front door. I could deal with that. But it was when they started involving my kids, and I don't even know that maybe that has nothing to do with it. Maybe I cut someone off in traffic one day and didn't realize it. But I just can't help but think that could be the only thing that would make someone feel so threatened by us, because our kids play with the neighborhood kids. And I don't know, and I've told them not to say anything about it just because they're young and it's too complicated to get into that stuff yet. But they do always ask them, where do you go to church, or why don't I see you at church? So I think my daughter may have let something slip, and I don't know. It's like that's the only reason I can think of that somebody would be targeting us, and it's kind of frustrating because I just have kind of a live and let live mentality, and I don't get why we're such a threat. We don't even really involve our neighborhood in anything. So I don't know. It's kind of a rough one.
I don't think you're crazy. Especially you're in heavy Mormon country.
Yeah, right in the middle of it. Right, we got a temple. We got a temple in every direction within a couple blocks of us. So.
Yeah, I don't think that doesn't sound crazy to me. And the Mormons, they've got there's some crazy shit in the Mormon. I mean, religions are often like a shopping mall for crazy shit, but the Mormons are up there on the list. I wrote a chapter about them in the book, my book, Sacred Cows. It's just insane. But, just be encouraged that I think it's healthy for them to know someone's out there. And if they really are genuinely going after your kids in some way, I mean, that's a huge boundary violation. And anyone in the chat, have any greater wisdom than I do as to what she might do, I'd encourage you to sort of stand by and watch and see what people in the comments have to say. But you can't really control how other people think about you or feel about you, and they're going to not go quietly when they see a critic in their midst. But as far as you and your family are concerned, I'm encouraged that Mormon country has a skeptic and free thinker and pro-science, pro-evidence parent in there who's fostering curiosity and discovery and doesn't drink the Kool-Aid. And so I encourage you, Amanda, and I think you're amazing, okay?
All right. Thanks, Seth. I appreciate it.
Take care of yourself. All right. I mean,
you too. Have a good one.
I don't have any great wisdom. I'm trying to think of how, if it's subtle, fine. If it's kind of these intangibles, but if they're overtly bullying or harassing someone, then I think that's where harder lines have to be drawn. They want her to move out. If this is the case, they want her to leave. So if she packs up and leaves Dodge, do they win? At the same time, she doesn't want her children accosted, and she doesn't want to be miserable in her life. So does she decide that for her own health, mental health, physical health, the well-being of her family, to relocate to a geographical region that is not defined by batshittery? But I think it's probably, if I had to guess, it's probably a concentrated effort by one or a very few individuals. And finding out who they are, legally finding out who they are, might reveal a whole lot and might allow you to see, the venues for ceasing this material, for preventing it in the future. Did you guys see that article that was posted? It was by Friendly Atheist. Hammett posted this was on the 12th, about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. I'll just read part of it for you. During a speech last week at a banquet for the Churches of Christ-affiliated Pepperdine University School of Law, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas perpetuated the conservative lie about how Democrats are imposing a religious test on political judicial nominees before suggesting atheists can't be trusted. Okay. Well, here's the deal. He was on stage, and he was taking questions. This was, at Pepperdine. Let me play you the clip, and then you can just we can comment about it. Forgive me, I'm juggling many windows here. I don't have a call screener. I don't have anybody. All right, here's Clarence Thomas on atheists.
Just as an aside, I think it's really interesting that people in a profession where we all take an oath
Why is that so quiet?
to do that, but similarly, I think it's illegitimate for others to do that. And just as an aside, I think it's really interesting that people in a profession where we all take an oath, that they would look at people who have strong faith as somehow not good people, when if you're an atheist, what does an oath mean? If you are a Christian and you believe in God, what does an oath mean? You know, do you say at the end of it, so help me God? And you have taken an oath to God. And as Mother Teresa said, it's between you and God.
Forgive the low volume. I'm going to come back and read part of this for you. I've got a weird volume discrepancy on my browser. Forgive me. I thought we got away from religious tests. Thomas himself, a Catholic, said at Pepperdine University School of Law, "I don't think I know a single judge that had allowed religion to interfere with their jobs." Thomas said he had discussions about faith with the late Justice Antonin Scalia, and they both felt it would be a violation of his oath to somehow allow his faith to displace the law. The worst thing Thomas said, though, came later when he questioned the legitimacy of atheists in similar roles. Thomas said it was interesting that skepticism of faith came in a profession where many take an oath before taking office. Quote, "I think it's interesting in a profession where we all take an oath that they would look at people who have strong faith as somehow not good people. When, if you're an atheist, what does an oath mean?" And he goes on to say that at the end of the oath, people say, "So help me God." And if you're an atheist, what are you saying, "So help me" on? And what do you, essentially, it's a play on where do your morals come from. It is, and then he invokes Mother Teresa. You should watch my speech. Just Google or YouTube search Seth Andrews, The Mother of Bad Ideas. It's a speech that I gave about Mother Teresa. And then you should Google Stop the Missionaries of Charity, which talks about how Mother Teresa is not the saint she was marketed to be. But this whole idea that, well, without God, all things are possible. Without God, there is no moral framework. I heard the comedian Steve Harvey say something. What's your moral barometer if you don't have God? And it's kind of pathetic if you have to be told that murder and rape and theft are wrong, if you don't understand the evolution of ethical systems and how ethical behavior essentially is a benefit for the entire species. We've done whole shows on morality, and there are some great studies on morality. But, it's just such an exercise in religious privilege, Christian privilege, to say, well, if you're an atheist, what does your oath mean? I mean, it means nothing to you. There's no meaning. There's no, gravity to what you're taking an oath upon, because so help me God. Well, that just dissolves in the wake of your atheism. It drives me crazy. Area code 346. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hello, hi Seth. My name is Jackson. I'm originally from Kenya, hence the accent a little bit. Yeah, I just moved here last year.
Great to talk to you, Jackson. Thanks for calling, my friend. What's on your mind?
Thank you. So my question is, how did you manage to navigate being from a very religious background? My country is 85% religious, and I'm kind of scared to come out because I don't know. I know how it's going to be taken, and I'm going to lose everyone because all my friends, all my family is very pious and very, 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 very religious. And I'm kind of at a loss. I'm reading some comments here. Like I read another comment in the chat whereby someone said that they've been ostracized from their family for 10 years. And I'm at a loss because I want to be honest with who I am and what the truth that I have come to know. But at the same time, I'm thinking I'm going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm a kind of, you can even hear my voice is shaky because I've never actually called.
No,
I've not had this
you're doing
conversation
great.
with anyone.
You're doing great, Jackson.
I've not had this conversation with anyone because where I'm from, you can't even have such a conversation. Not that something will happen. At least Kenya is a pretty decent country. We do have a small atheist community, but generally underground. So it's kind of scary. I'm kind of at a loss of. So I want to know, how did you navigate? How did others navigate? And is it a sort of doom for me? Do I have to start thinking about me and my family, or my friends and I, we are done for? Because I came out to my friend, was it a week ago, and she hasn't talked to me for 3 weeks now.
What are the chances that she's going to spill the beans to the people you are still keeping this a secret from? Is she going to go and tell people?
95%, yeah.
So they're going to know anyway, is what you're saying.
I don't know. I told her not to tell people, but I do think it's going to be one of those, I'm going to tell you something, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And then so and so and so forth. Yeah, good.
Yeah. You remind me of a lot of the emails I get from Islamic nations and in cults, people who are in Jehovah's Witnesses and these sort of cults that ostracize the apostate or even the doubter, and families are instructed to shun. I don't know if it's an instruction or if it's just a cultural thing, but I mean, the idea that a religion will have that level of control over your family's mind. I mean, you think about it, Jackson. The reason that you're worried now is not because there's something wrong with you or because you don't love and accept them, whatever may come. The reason you are nervous and afraid and you have all this anxiety about the future is because of them, because of their attitudes, because they will judge you. They may or will reject you. They have a high likelihood of sort of shutting you out, cutting you off, disconnecting you from your family tree. And so it's by nothing that you've done. It's a reflection of the damage that has been done to their concepts of love and family and righteousness and goodness. And I find that tragic. And so I think we have to start by recognizing that it's not, the anxiety you're feeling is not your fault. It's the product of how brainwashed they are into superstition, damaging superstition. It is not your fault. That, in fact, I think the fact that you worry about hurting your family or losing your family reveals the goodness in you, right? You don't want to hurt your parents. You don't want to lose your siblings. You want everyone to sing Kumbaya and be together. But who's the one who's taken the hard line, right? It's likely mom and dad and the siblings and the nephews and nieces and grandparents and everybody else, right?
Yeah. Look, I know I'll break my mom's heart. Like I don't even know how if we ever come around to this conversation, she's gonna have her heart is gonna break. And that just crashes me.
I understand. I understand very, very much. Can I ask how old your mother is?
She's 65, 68, somewhere there.
You know, it's funny when some people talk about, should I tell my grandmother who's 90? You know, a lot of times my answer is no. I mean, you can, but the cost benefit on that is, you know, hell, just keep her happy. You know, just let her go and do her thing. You know, that's.
I do agree, but yeah, with my mom, she's 60. She has around, and she's healthy, so she has around 20 to 25 years, 35 years on her. I would want her to live for the longest.
Do you deserve an authentic life, Jackson? You know, at the end of the day, let's talk philosophically. Beyond the consequences, if they're living what they feel is authentic, an authentic life, they get to be who they are. They get to decide how they frame their own life. Do you deserve an authentic life where you get a chance to make those same choices for you?
I do agree. I do deserve an authentic life. I want an authentic life. I do think my challenge is every scope of my life is connected to religion in a way. I'm 24 years old. I'm born and raised Catholic all through, and then around 1918 moved to Protestant. Even wanted and started ministering, doing all those nice religious things, going to schools, preaching. Wanted to become a pastor, and then as I read the Bible, I started asking questions, and I realized those questions, just the normal procedure of reading the Bible and starting to ask questions and so on and so on. So the thing is, my whole life is encompassed around my friends, my family, everything. And given that my country is 85% Christian, you can imagine there are not many to go around as friends. So yeah. To answer your question, I do want to be genuine, but I'm at a loss of, do I just cut off this other community which I have grown with for a better part of my life, and start afresh? I do start afresh.
Well, only you can. I mean, I'm not trying to cop out, Jackson. But I'm not trying to cop out by saying only you can make that choice. But again, because I believe that we are our own authentic people. Only you can decide the cost benefit. I mean, how much do you need your family to be involved in your life, and how much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice? And will you spend the rest of your life resentful about the fact that you are on mute and you are filtering what you really think and feel while everybody else gets to be loud and proud? But I mean, I understand from a
so my question to you is, knowing that that was your background for a very long time.
Yeah.
How did you navigate it? Like, how did you end up,
Well, it'd be better, Jackson, if you were talking to somebody who had success. I mean, I don't, I'll tell you that, I'll be very candid. I started with my parents by asking questions. I started with asking them to demonstrate things about their faith. And this was twofold. I did it for two reasons. One is I was genuinely curious because they were supposed to know a lot about Christianity. And two, I wanted to put on their radar that I wasn't necessarily buying it all, or I had some doubts. And it was a way to sort of ease them in instead of walking into their house and going, I don't believe in God, and watching the entire place burst into flames. I started with, can someone explain to me how a 500-year-old guy built a stadium-sized boat out of trees and tar? You just start with things like that. And can I
just catch you off a little bit?
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing. Okay, I'm taking too much time, am I?
No, not at all. Not at all. There's a little bit of a delay, and I don't mean to walk on you. Please take your time, Jackson. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So an interesting thing with also religion back at home is, because of the literacy levels, is most people haven't read the Bible, and therefore they just believe it because they have been told. If I told my mom or my dad to demonstrate something in the Bible, they won't. They have no idea about it.
So they believe in belief.
But they believe in belief, which is at least for my sisters or my brothers, I can be able to tell them, explain to me the Tower of Babel, like how the hell did that happen? But my parents, if I tell them that, they'll be like, no, just believe in God. God is everything.
No, there's not much you can do with that, my friend. And when someone's made an emotional decision, that is trying to get any purchase in an evidence-driven conversation. That way, madness lies. Like I wouldn't waste your time in that case. But unless you're using those stories from specifics, stories from their faith, to explain why you may not buy it all. I think the other thing too is, in my own life, I tried to explain that I'm still the same person. And that I think if God exists, that God, a loving God, would reward anyone who was on a genuine search for the truth. I'm still the same guy. I think if God exists, wherever she is, will see me on my journey and not send me to hell and not punish me for simply wanting to live truthfully. And so you might be able to use an emotional plea in that way to talk about the fact that, I just want to live a truthful life, but I'm still the same guy. But ultimately, if they draw a hard line in the sand and say, believe like us or else, there may not be much else that you can do. I don't have, I'll tell you the truth, Jackson. I had my mother and father. My mother would not enter my home. She wouldn't come over the threshold of my door because I'm an atheist activist. And the mortgage is then paid with devil money. Okay. So we moved and bought a house a couple of years ago. Hey, we're having a housewarming. My mother would not come. It's the devil's house. And she knows there's a studio up here with all of my thinking atheist accoutrements and whatnot. And for my birthday, they finally, for the first time ever, came over. And we all had a family dinner in my home. And I was very generous. I was very gracious. But it took us years to get to that point where they would even walk over the threshold. So I don't have a success story in my own life. I can't tell you that I did this and it worked. All I can say is that I've decided in my own life that mom and dad, nobody else on my family tree or elsewhere gets to decide who I am. And I've decided in my own life that if they're going to draw a hard line and say, agree with me or we'll cut you off, I'll respond with, have a nice life. I'm going to go and find my family elsewhere, a family that will respect me and love me and accept me for who I am. Those are the conversations that only you can have with yourself, my friend. I just can't solve it for you. But I want you to look at this room, look at the chat. I want you to go and see free thought communities online. I want you to be reminded that you are not alone in your journey, that there are others out there who have your back, that will act like family, that won't judge you or cut you off or do those horrible things. Beyond that, I can't speak to, I can't magically sort of transport you out of Kenya into a more accepting part of the world. But I just want to.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky. Right now I'm in the States. I moved to the States, so I'm pretty lucky. But at the end of the day,
now we're starting. So, can I ask what region you're in? Tell me it's not like the deep South, the religious South.
I'm in Texas.
It's like okay, Texas. Yeah.
Well, not a bad place. I'm in Houston, so pretty metropolitan. So
that's cool. That's cool. I really think you should just be you, and everybody else, it's on them whether or not they're going to be okay with that. And quite frankly, and this sounds callous, if someone says, "Oh, I'm not okay with who you are," I'm like, "Have a nice life." You either will accept me, differences and all. We can disagree like adults and still love each other. If you can't do that, you've given me no choice. I'm going to go find a family who will act like family. And you do have family out here. You have people who do understand and get you, Jackson. Just be reminded you're not alone, okay? I don't know. Does any of that help at all? Did I just totally waste your time?
Yes. No. I think I just kind of needed what path you picked. I wasn't asking. I wasn't looking for.
I wrote a letter
for help in a decision. I was looking for how did you do it? Am I willing to do it that way? And then now from what you told me, the next. You wrote a letter.
I sent an email to everybody, sort of laying it out. But if I had to do it over again, I would do it a little bit differently. I was in my letter to everyone, my coming out letter was an explanation of all the reasons why I'm rejecting, well, not all, but most of the major reasons I'm rejecting Christianity. And I was trying to argue in the letter that I'm justified in doing so. And that's just wrong. That is not the way to start. If I had to do it over again, I would simply make it short and sweet and say, I am on a journey in my own life where I am no longer convinced that these things are true, but I have pledged myself to live a truthful life. I'm still the same good moral person I was, and I love all of you, and I wish you the best on your journeys. I just wanted to let you know kind of where I'm at. I'd have made it more of kind of an emotional appeal and a lot more vague, and I'd have not tried to argue my point. If you come out to them, make sure it's about you. Make sure that you're just saying, look, I'm on my path. I'm asking my questions. I'm still the same guy, and I love you. And, see what happens next, okay?
Okay, cool. Sure thing.
All right,
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Jackson, and I'm glad you're down there in Houston. They need more free thinkers down there, for sure. So,
Thank you.
Take care, bro. See you later.
All right.
I used to do some video work in for this company, and we would go to Houston and we would go shoot video in the month of August. If there is a hell, I mean, Houston's a cool city. If there is a hell, it's Houston or the entire state of Louisiana in the month of August. I walked out off the plane and I hit a wall of humidity. It was like I bounced off of it and I wanted to go back into the airplane and travel back to where I was. Your clothes stick to your body. The lenses were fogging up on the cameras. We were sweat just pouring off of us. We had exterior shoots. It was just Houston. But if it's not August, it's a great city. Let's do a few more. We'll see what our listeners have to say. You guys enjoying yourself? 617, you're on the switchboard. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this? 617, who's this? Let's try 706. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, this is Wes.
Wes, what's going on?
Hey, Seth, I need to make a confession here. I am a former Christian professional wrestler.
Oh, wow. I want to see your life story on the big screen. Were you one of those cats who used to do the power team, ripping the phone books in half, or were you an actual wrestler?
No, it wasn't the power team, but we did do something with them. We did a couple of shows with them, but we were mainly the Hulk Hogan stuff in the ring, and we actually had a guy come down from, I want to say he was a director from Wisconsin that came down and did our show down here in South Carolina, and did a documentary and posted it on Netflix, and we actually had our own Netflix show. It's not there anymore, but it basically got into the ins and outs of how Christian wrestling kind of formulated and how it went together and how we were able to preach the word of Jesus through body slams.
Kicking each other's ass for Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, you can't imagine. I was one of the story writers, and one of my stories was that I needed a tag team in there. One guy to be getting beaten up by chairs, and his tag team partner comes in there, throws himself on top of his other his partner, and then starts taking the beating instead of him. And that was supposed to, give off the fact that Jesus was in fact taking the beating for us. I just feel absolutely horrible.
Jesus was choke slammed for your sins. Is kind of what that's about. Keep talking. Please forgive me.
I just need everybody.
I'm actually trying to find the chat room here real fast because I've got some people saying that there's some troll. I do not have a call screener, and I desperately need one. I don't have a chat screener, and I desperately need one. So if I'm looking away as you speak, please know that I'm not being rude, or I'm not attempting to be rude.
No, that's
so. I mean, tell me about some of the stuff that you did. Tell me about some of the what are some of the stunts you pulled?
So we'd end up wrestling at church events. We did the altar call after the show. It was just an absolute mess. I feel absolutely horrible because looking back on it, I was leading these people to something that I didn't even understand. It wasn't until years later I started reading the Bible for myself and found my way out, like a lot of us did. But I look back and think of how many people I sat down and talked to after these shows that were lost and didn't know their way through life or whatever. And I'm sitting there telling them, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And it was just an absolute mess.
I feel the same way. When I was on Christian radio, I was part of a mechanism that helped to promote lies to people, including young children. I would go and and do
Right.
special appearances. And, in some ways I feel like I need to do my penance to undo some of the damage that I did. So,
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it eventually fell apart when when the guy that was running it ended up in jail, and the wife starts cheating with a couple of the other wrestlers. I mean, it was just a mess. There's nothing. I don't know. It it was like a family affair with a bunch of family idiots around, and everybody has their problems, and there's the church has its own problems. The 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 Catholics have their own problems. There's problems running everywhere, and just because you put that Christian label on you doesn't mean everything's peachy and clean.
yeah, yeah. Well, we saw that in Christian circles. I mean, you'd see, there were scandals. Somebody was having an affair with so and so, and somebody else was convicted of statutory rape, and he's in prison. And there was a child molester who was lead singer for a Christian band, and he just got out of prison
Okay.
after 3 decades, and wow, yeah, and you just realize people are people. And plus, when you see in any construct, but certainly in religious ones, when you have people who are in positions of authority, and religion loves authority, right? So people are looking up. They're looking up to the pedestal, to the pastor, to the evangelist, to the spiritual leader, to the counselor, whatever. These provide tremendous numbers of opportunities for intimacy, where people are using their power to they'll bring in people, and there's a celebrity factor involved. There's a trust thing that's going on.
Absolutely.
And so, they come in, and
Absolutely.
that's why we see so many pastor scandals, because they're back there in the back room and they're praying with and they're counseling someone. And before you know it, you're that close. The doors are closed and things happen. And especially if you have someone who's using their position to gain that type of influence, sexual or otherwise, it's a pretty ripe playground for the opportunist. And you saw this as well, huh?
Absolutely. It was just it's rampant. There's nothing special about it. Everybody has their problems, and
Yeah.
and
How you doing these days?
just to close it out, I'm doing a lot better. We have my own little atheist group down here in the South Carolina, Georgia region, and we try and get together and lift each other up and make sure everybody else is doing okay in the area.
Yeah. Being a human being, I like the sound
But
of it. I'm glad you escaped, my friend. I'd love to see some old VHS video of you guys on stage
oh
breaking,
God, it's
folding
out there.
chairs over each other's head. Were you like Mankind, where you pulled out the sock puppet out of your drawer, out of your trousers or whatever, and you were, jumping off the, I don't know. Was it that extreme?
Yeah, it was. It got to that point. But yeah, I really want to just tell you thanks for doing this show.
No,
It
dude,
really means a lot.
it's an honor to be able to do it, and to remind everybody, as they remind me, that it's okay. So hey, keep the tights, keep the wrestling tights as a memento of those days. Bring the mask out to a convention one day. Maybe we'll have a side, we'll do a side conference. And but in the meantime, thanks
Hell
for
yeah.
sharing your story, and hang in there, okay, bro?
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you later. They used to have a group here called the Power Team. That's why I brought it up. And they were these big, thick, their necks were bigger than my waist kind of dudes. And they'd walk out and they would do these feats of unbelievable strength to help tell the story of Jesus. And so they would come out and, they would take the big rebar and they'd bend it with their arms, and they'd have a phone book and they'd have everybody like, come on, yeah, come on, everybody. And the crowd would be cheering, and they pull out a phone book and they rip it in half, and they would have all these feats of strength. And then they do an altar call. They would talk about, we are actually only physically strong, but without our God, we are the ultimate weakling. And only with Jesus can we actually achieve the strength that passes all understanding. And then the music would play, and they'd bring everybody in, and they would have an altar call. And so Hang on just a second. Okay. It was comical. I mean, I wish I could see video of all of it back then. And it was the youth groups were bust into these things. They had youth groups that were coming in, and the rock and roll and Christian rock's playing. Man, they're playing like Striper and all this other stuff. They're out there. Veins are popping out of their foreheads, and their pectoral muscles are just raging out of their bodies. But we're weak, and in our weakness, Jesus is strong. Come forward and accept Jesus. Okay. 917. Area code 917. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth. This is Omar. How are you, man?
I'm good. Is it Omar?
Omar, yes. Omar.
Yeah. What's going on, bro?
Not much. So just wanted to, thank you quickly because I'm recently became an atheist, and I've been going through quite a bit of rough ride with my wife and family. They're all Seventh-day Adventists, and it's extremely hard to kind of survive in that in that house.
Yeah.
But
so, are you still still in that
Yeah.
environment, or?
Well, yeah, my mother, my father, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my wife, everyone is still a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm an ex-minister. I was actually a leader of youth. I had a Christian ministry with 3 Christian albums. I'm a singer with a rock band, so it's kind of hard to kind of leave in that environment.
I get that.
My wife has been somewhat, she has accepted so far my views and my beliefs now, my lack of belief, but it's kind of hard. I wanted to ask you, how do you think I could, handle this? Because she still wants my kids to be raised in the church, indoctrinated by all these crazy beliefs, and she doesn't want me to tell my kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, and she doesn't want me to tell them, that I'm an atheist, that I have doubts. So, I have this really hard time handling this.
Okay. The first thing I'd like you to do, if you haven't done it already, is, and the only reason I say this is because I've gotten feedback from people who said they got benefit. I did a short video called Letter to a Christian Spouse. And even if she's not a Christian, I want you to pull that up on YouTube. If you can't find it, drop me an email, Seth@thethinkingatheist.com. Letter to a Christian Spouse. And I want you to watch it together. Or she can watch it. I mean, actually, she could probably watch it by herself if she's self-conscious. But I just want her to get through it. And what it does is it helps to lay out how someone who is doubting the faith or who has left the faith, what their journey might look like. But it also says that we understand her. We understand what she's feeling, right? She's looking at you going, this ain't the deal I made. I thought I was going to have someone who was going to be in church with me and who was going to help raise these godly children and who would affirm me and we would have a godly life together. And all of a sudden, he sort of changed the game on me. And it admits that, it's hard for her too. It really humanizes the whole thing. If you could take 15, 20 minutes and watch it, that I think will lay a foundation for you to have a conversation together. Beyond that, I think you should ask her if she would abide by the same rule that she is asking you to abide by. Meaning she's saying, well, I don't want you to tell the kids what you believe. And so I think if you turn that around and say, well, what if I was to ask you not to tell the kids what you believe? What would you say? How would you respond to that? And she, of course, is going to be like, well, of course I can't do that. I'm gonna be true to myself. It's a great way of explaining. You're not telling your kids what to think. I think you're just telling them what you think. I'm not going to tell our children don't believe in God or do believe in God. I'm going to just tell them what my opinion is, and I'm going to try to give them critical thinking skills so that they can determine what they believe. That's a hard conversation.
Awesome.
But if you really make it about, look, I'm going to live my truth in front of these kids, and I welcome you to do the same, and let's encourage them to ask a lot of questions. That might be a way for you guys to achieve some kind of middle ground. It may or may not work, but that would be my advice.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ed. I wanted to say thank you because you and Matt Delahanty have been, my strength through this transition. And, it has helped me a lot to, there's a community that it's out there, to help people with doubts like me. And, I wanted to say thank you.
Now, it's an honor, my friend. You just hang in there, okay?
Okay, thank you. Have a good one.
Take care, Omar. I mean, I'm in this position where I'm an activist and a storyteller, communicator, producer. I am not a relationship professional. I am not an expert in any of these sort of. I'm not a licensed family counselor. I am not that guy. I mean, I can throw out an opinion as a friend and as someone who's done a lot of this and has experienced familial consequences in my own life, but take it or leave it. I'm not Yoda on this. By the way, thanks to Biddy in the chat, I was able to sort of jump over here and make Biddy an admin and moderator, so she's going to help us weed out. But okay, let's see. Area code 984. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hi, my name's Adam. How are you doing today, Seth?
I'm glad I'm not the only one here with a biblical name, Adam. That's good to know. It's good to know.
Oh, well, it's not my real name.
Oh, okay.
It's part of my real name.
Whatever. What's happening in your world? What do you
Yeah,
want
it
to talk
doesn't
about?
matter. Just for a minute. One, I really liked what you just did there with the previous caller. I really appreciate like anybody speaking to, and I think you did it very well, speaking to just the general, like working out relationship differences in general. I think what you said applies extremely well for any difficult difference of just, you have to acknowledge what the other person's viewpoint is.
Well, we seem to live in an empathy-free culture sometimes. I struggle sometimes when we talk, like when the atheists talk about the religious, or the Democrats talk about the Republicans, or anybody talks about anybody else. Few people take a moment to try to see things from the other person's point of view. In fact, some people feel like that's a kind of moral sellout. And I'm like, if you don't understand what drives their thinking, and if you don't understand why they have taken this position, how in the world are you ever going to have a meaningful conversation and perhaps, cause a better idea to survive and thrive? So thanks for that encouragement. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I like to use the word compassion over empathy, and the difference I make is that I think people get in trouble with empathy as well, though, because they you get so wrapped up in feeling what the other person is feeling, what outrage and anger and pain that you end up not thinking critically at the same time. And I think you have to have both. But that's what I really wanted to say, though.
No, take your time. It's good.
Hey, I'm from Oklahoma. I grew up in Oklahoma City, and I tuned in kind of late, but I came in right as you were talking about the power team, and they came to my school several times when I was a kid, and I got a big kick out of hearing somebody else talk about.
Did I describe it accurately? I mean, did I paint the picture correctly?
Oh gosh, they're perfect. That's perfect. That's exactly what they do. They came to my school. I wasn't having any of it. This is like first grade, like 7 years old.
So they got you early.
They're getting. Yeah, well, I mean, I've never been a theist. My parents weren't. When I was a little kid, my mom and dad always tell me that they remind me. I don't remember it exactly, but I asked when I was like 5 or 6, apparently, do you believe in God? I asked my mom, and she said, it's none of your business. So I've never been any sort of theist.
I envy you in
but,
many ways. It took me another 3 decades to to get there. I'm sorry.
Well, I had to be an asshole a lot. I think people like, which is so, and sometimes that went to a point where, you know, I would almost be like, I wouldn't seek it out, conflict exactly, but if it came to me, like I really could be pretty mean sometimes.
Yeah.
And that, you know,
So
not the
what happened to
greatest
you?
way to handle it.
Come on, I mean, you went from probably
What-
more of the biting humor and the ridicule and the you know, tossing out the jabs to more of a compassionate approach. What prompted that?
Quite a lot of things. Various, you know, just going through a lot of pain, in short, you know,
Yeah.
and continuing to, yeah, just meeting people and talking to people and just always and learning to be more and more interested in people as I got older, and just a lot of things. Pain.
For me,
plenty of, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Please
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I didn't mean to walk all over you there, my friend.
No, it's fine. I talk more than
Not at all.
Shannon Q.
Not at all. Well, you know, sometimes
Yeah.
on the switchboard there's a delay, and sometimes I just have poor timing. But you know, in my life, I found that I was getting frustrated that I was getting nowhere. Like I used to think, well, you ridicule the ridiculous, and I do. I think that has its place. But going after someone's religion while I'm sitting over the dinner table produced no positive results whatsoever. As I was, you know, lampooning and going after the story of Abraham and Isaac, and all that stuff, it just caused conflict, and everybody doubled down, and nobody was changing their mind, and I got no purchase, no traction. And I realized after a series of years that, you know, I've got to try something else. And so I've embraced a little bit more of the street epistemology model in my own life, and tried to, you know, I just came out of Kansas City Oasis speaking there, and they have a great T-shirt that says "People are more important than beliefs." And I've also tried to hold to that in my life because I think that's very appropriate. So.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, my friend.
No, I agree. So I love you. I love what you do. I've found a great deal of. I've learned a lot of things in the past couple of years listening to a number of y'all on YouTube. You, Shank, a number of other people. Just in general, relational skills. Like not just about arguing, but like just like, oh, this is how I can talk to people and be better at being good to other people.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the kind words, my friend. It does mean a lot, and thanks for calling on this show. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for listening.
Oh, you
thanks
betcha.
for
See you later.
talking back at me.
Okay,
All
take
right.
care.
Bye.
All right. Hey, while we were, he mentioned Power Team. Let me pull this up here real fast. There's a little bit of a spillover of the chat, but I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can make this work. Okay, Power Team. God made you to win. Formed in the late 1970s, Power Team was a group of muscle men who traveled around to churches and performed amazing feats of strength in the name of God. And there's a video clip. All right, let's try this. Hang on. There's not much volume here, but at least we can get the visuals. Oh, there's fire and bricks and ads. Oh, yeah. Look at those arms. Look at those arms. Oh, I like the Karate Kid bandana. You know, these guys they probably just exist on protein powder, right? Oh, yeah, he's blowing up the hot water bottle until it explodes, which to me is my worst nightmare because I have a phobia about popping balloons. That freaks me out. That freaks me out. Oh, my God. Phone book ripping in half. By the way, there's some tricks to doing this, apparently. Who was it who exposed the ripping the phone book trick? There's a technique that you use. I think it was the Mythbusters. All right, come on. Let's try one more real fast. And forgive me, I'm going to try to find out why the audio feed off YouTube is so low via my interface. Oh, look, they're in a church. That guy is typical power team. Typical power team. All right, he's preaching in the church, and everybody, man, aren't we cool for Jesus? Aren't we awesome for Jesus? Oh, we're going to do both arms in the head. Look at his shirt. Look at his shirt. It's like Flash Gordon after the bee sting, after the reaction. Hallelujah, he says. Oh, I wish I could increase the volume. I'm so sorry. Hang on. He's going to preach, and we're going to skip that shit. Oh, yeah, he's tough. He's a strong man for Christ. So I'm guessing it's accurate to say that this guy has gotten swole. He got swole? The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. Now, how many of these guys were doing steroids? The feathered hair. It's awesome. I love the 80s. Come on. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of concrete, I will fear no concussion, for you are with me. Your roids and your protein powder, they comfort me. Oh my God, just fucking milk it. Milk it. I'm sorry. I gotta scroll forward. Anthony, thanks for the chat, by the way. What the? What? Oh, he had to take his clothes off? I'm unable to break the concrete because I'm wearing fabric. You know he's getting his abs work out. I mean, look at that, right? You know his core's got to be crazy strong. I was going to take something else off. He sticks his hand in the air because Jesus provides the power. Jesus provides the power. I'm scrolling forward. He still hasn't done it. He's still talking about it. No. Was that worth the wait? I don't think so. Oh, yeah, mixed fabrics make him weak. He broke the commandment. Is it in Exodus or in Leviticus where it says you shall not mix your fabrics? And so you're do two different types of seeds in the field. I'm trying to remember which one that was. That's awesome. That's classic. Okay. I've got one more in the switchboard. We'll do that and call it a day. Area code 806. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hi, Shy?
Shadow? What's going on?
Shy.
Shit. I thought it was Shadow. I thought I heard Shadow, and I thought, wow, you're a superhero. Nice to talk to you.
Wow, that's edgy.
Yeah, it is. What can I do for you? What's going on?
I was actually going to call and ask for some advice.
Oh, God. All right, I'll do my best for you. But, all right, I'll put a disclaimer that we're just friends talking over a drink, okay?
Okay.
All right. What's up?
Well, I've been an atheist for most of my life, I think. I don't think I ever actually fully believed, but my most of my family knows, or my real family, the family I care about knows. My mom, my husband, and his family know. And I've been wanting to try to come out, but I don't want my extended family harassing my mom about it. Because they never go to me with issues if they have an issue with me. They'll harass her for it.
God, this is one of the reasons that I oppose not just religious belief, but this weird passive aggression that families do. I can think of probably 5 people in my own circle that if they're upset with you, they don't go to the source and say, I'm really been concerned, or I'm upset about something and I really want to talk to you about it so we can fix this. They don't do that. They call everybody else and go, oh my God, so-and-so did this. And did you hear about that? And the gossip goes crazy and everybody loses their mind. And no one's really talking to each other. They're all just sort of, it's the grapevine on crack. That's probably what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, they'll never tell me when they have an issue. And I don't want to put my mother through this because she's already got enough bullshit to deal with.
She knows about
you. She
you,
doesn't
though.
need to deal with this crap. Yeah, she's known for most of it. She's actually the one who taught me, like, hey, some people believe this, some people believe that. You believe whatever you want.
This sounds like a conversation. Have you talked to her about your concerns? Because that's where I'd start. Mom, look, I really want to do this, but I love you, and I know you're carrying a big burden. I don't want this to fall back on you. Have you had that chat?
We've talked about it a little bit, and her main thing is, just wait it out another decade or so, because most of the family that does this they're the grandparents' generation, so they've got maybe another decade left.
Oh, wait till they die off? Oh, God.
She's morbid.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking, I'm sorry. We have to wait until they are no longer around. They've died until we can be who we are. I mean, you understand how tragic that sounds to me, right?
Yeah, it sounds a little bit harsh. Our family isn't that. Parts of the family are really close to each other, but they hate other parts of the family for some reason.
Well, are you really worried about
And it's something that happened over 40 years ago.
Is your mom, I mean, these are her parents, right?
Her aunts and uncles.
Oh, I mean, I don't mean to be flippant. I don't mean to sound flippant about your situation. Does your mom really care that much about what they think? Can they really wreck her life that much?
It's more of just not wanting to have to deal with the spam. Because we're going through a lot at once, and we don't want to have to add on another thing. But it's really hard every time there's a death in the family. And it's never about the person who died. It's always about God. And it makes it even harder to deal with.
I get it. I can't tell you what to do. I always have to say that. I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you how I feel in my own life. I don't really, in my mind, I don't give a shit what aunt, so-and-so and uncle such and such and all those people have to say. And if they want to become judgmental or cross boundaries, I have every right to sort of say, you don't get to do that. And the same holds true for your mom. If they start injecting negativity into her life and they start making her life hell, she has every right to say, you are a force of chaos in my life. You are not bringing constructive, positive influence into my life. And if you don't stop all this nonsense, I'm probably going to have to stop taking your calls. And she can decide if she's going to do that or not. Now, because you have a stressful situation, if you want to sort of parse this out, meaning let's get through this valley and tackle this specific problem before we get into the religious discussions, I buy that. But the idea of you sitting around for 10 years having to walk on eggshells and sit on your hands while they, aunt and uncle, likely get to be who they are at the volume they choose, it just grieves me. I think it'd be healthy for them to know somebody out there doesn't think like they do, doesn't look or talk or walk or act or approach the world like they do. It's healthy for them to see an example of a free thinker out there. And, that's probably, if I were you, I would sit down once more with your mom and be like, look, why are we making all the concessions? I really want to be an authentic person. And, and I think you need to respect yourself enough not to allow them to ruin your life. I mean,
Yeah.
if people are only bringing the negative, then why are we hanging on to them? And don't give me this family tree bullshit, because family acts like family. There's this weird narrative that, hey, because you're an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a parent, a child, a sibling, a spouse, that you automatically have permission to inject negativity into my life, to shame me, to decide who I am or how I live. And that's just crap. And I think it's time we as free thinkers to just make that declaration. Look, I'm not going to let you live my life any more than you're going to let me live your life. It's time to have some respective boundaries. And if you can't respect it, you're out. So that would be my hope for you guys, for what it's worth. Okay?
Thanks. The funniest thing is, for me, it wouldn't even make me that much more distant. I'm already the shame of the hated one of the family or some other
I'm sorry
crap
about
like
that. I mean, that just sucks. It grieves me to hear that. Have they cut you off, or did you cut them off because they were being ugly?
Well, ever since I was a kid, because my mom and dad weren't married, but that's not a big deal to me. It wasn't a big deal to her either, but they're part of that generation that's like, oh no, you didn't put a ring on it. How dare you? Don't ever come again.
Yeah.
So I didn't really, they were a face that I would see 2 or 3 times every 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. Goat herders a few thousand years ago said that marriage should be this. Therefore, this is what we believe in the year, whatever. It makes me crazy. It sounds to me, honestly, like they were judgmental in the first place. They're pious. They're probably very sanctimonious people. Life's too short for that. Life's too short to have to live under somebody else's sort of judgmental nose as they look down at it upon you. You don't have to put up with all that. Neither does your mom. Live life on your terms, embrace it to the fullest, be who you are, and remember that the tide is rising. Right now, the nuns or non-religious are tied with Protestant Christians, evangelicals, and Catholics in the United States statistically. The rise of the non-religious are happening, and as your aunt and uncle lose their shit, as they see that statistic continuing to rise, it doesn't mean that it's not going to continue, right? The cat's out of the bag, so you just be encouraged, all right?
Yeah, I laughed when they freaked out at that.
I love you. Send them that link. Oh, by the way, I don't know. I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, you are not alone. You're not alone, and the numbers are growing by the second. So hang in there. All right.
All right, we will.
All right. Catch you later. All right. I love that statistic about the rise of the nuns. Not necessarily atheists, but non-religious people. People just don't need it. And she was talking about that generation, our grandparents' generation, my parents' generation. Natalie and I lived together for 4 years before we got married. And, there's this thing. Well, if you didn't stand in this room and acknowledge this before God and have a ring and have the signatures on the marriage license and all that stuff, then somehow you're not a legitimate family. Fuck that. I do not understand these people. Well, if you haven't had the magical ceremony and you're living in the same roof and even sleeping in the same bed and you don't have one union consecrated under Jesus, you're not an actual family. You don't get to define my family for me. We were every bit as much a family before we got married, and we had a secular officiant our way. We did our ceremony our way, wrote our own vows, did our own thing. But long before we stood up here and decided we'd like to frame it with an actual marriage together, we were still a family. And the idea that religion's over here with its arms folded going, well, actually, we own family. We own the narrative. We own the framework of family, and family is what we say it is. And if you don't fit into this box, you're not a family. Fuck that. You do not get to do that. Nice try. Nice try. And religion does this all the time. Oh, we enjoy communal music. That's like a church service. We enjoy organizing and coming together to achieve good in the world. Charity and charitable efforts, morality and goodness, all the best stuff in life we actually own. And if you don't fit into our little box over here, well, you're either doing it wrong or you've, what did the pastor say when I had the debate with him on the radio last month or the month before? He said, did he say plagiarize, moral plagiarism? You've borrowed it from us. Only due to us do you actually have. No. Sorry, those days are over. The days of you having a monopoly on the narrative are over. The days of you telling everybody else how they can live, those days are over. The nuns are coming. The non-religious are rising by the second here in the United States. There are more and more people who don't need the piety. They don't need the superstition. They don't need the judgment. They don't need all these crazy batshit rules. They don't need you and your piousness to be able to live a good life. In fact, they might just be better off without you. In your own life, I hope you don't get to the point where you have to cut people off. But quite frankly, it's on them if they can't accept you for who you are. If they can't be in the same room with you or not ruin your day with, whatever passive aggressive or even aggressive interjections they have, that's on them. That's on them. Bye, have a nice life. We tried. I'm going to go live my life authentically on my terms with people who act like family. That's kind of where I've come in my own life. Been a fun stream. This has been I think, a successful experiment with the audio and video and the phone callers and everything. So thank you all. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Remember, you're not alone. You're not crazy. And I'll see you back here. I guess we'll do this when. We may do this here later on this week. So keep an eye on Facebook and the YouTube stream, and I will see you then.